You're listening to You Had Me at Big Fart.
Nice!
Last time on You Had Me at Bigfoot.
If you consider that those auto beats you can make with like a Yamaha keyboard, you know,
yeah, that's what James does.
You press the button and a beat happens. It's just like one tempo.
Don't reveal my secrets, guys.
Come on. And then all of a sudden you hear do 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 do.
All units in the vicinity of 10th and Main, we got a 1015. How copy?
This is Unit 551 responding to a 1015 on 10th and Main. What's the situation?
Dispatch to Unit 551. Caller is stating that we have a 10-foot male covered in hair, possibly intoxicated, and he appears to be dry humping post office drop boxes.
This is Unit 501. Is it the Miller boy again?
Negative on that 551. Miller's been locked up in county since last weekend. You might want to proceed with caution.
Affirmative dispatch for proceeding with caution, but if this is a hang again, we're going to have to talk over now.
You know I can't make that promise, 551. Just keep your eyes and ears open. I got a funny feeling about this one.
You're listening to You Had Me at Bigfoot, your exclusive source for the Mothman Kama Sutra, with your host, the guy who trained Van Helsing, Tom.
And I really, I don't know. Anyways, get off my soapbox.
And the only man to ever kick a wendigo to death, Dustin.
Hey! Alien fingers, yes.
Remember to check out our Twitter at You Had Me Podcast. Find us on YouTube, You Had Me at Bigfoot Podcast, or on our website, www.youhadmeatbigfoot.com. In
I think
classic
this time
James fashion.
he'll call in 5 minutes after I've left.
Probably.
Yeah.
Is Dustin still there? Dismissed. We'll do you want to do Masquatch intro? Good evening. Hello, everybody. Welcome to You Had Me at Bigfoot. Tonight, we're going to dive right into it. We're talking about Roswell, New Mexico, which many of you may have heard of. What do you know about Roswell, New Mexico?
Isn't that where they originated the payback for probings?
Where they originated the payback. Do you think that when the Roswell incident happened and the alien craft crashed, do you think that when they recovered the body, that scientists got payback for all the probing that had happened up until that point?
Absolutely. Wouldn't it be great if the people that claimed to had been probed up to that point got a chance to come probe the aliens?
Everyone got a chance? Okay.
Like one chance.
If you were probed by an alien, so back to the original, the very first question. If you were abducted by aliens and you were probed by aliens, how many fingers would you in turn probe the dead crash-landed alien?
Oh, it's dead.
With it's dead. I think it was dead, right?
Was it? I mean, is that something we won't debate tonight?
I'm sure we will at some point. How many fingers would you put into a dead alien during a probe?
3.
3? Just 3?
Just 3.
So maybe that's the answer.
It's pretty universal.
How do you probe an alien with 3 fingers?
Not like that. That makes it too pleasurable. You gotta go in there like that.
3. Okay.
Or like this.
You looked pretty angrily at the audience with that. So, tonight we are talking about Roswell, New Mexico. And as many of you may know, there was a crash-landed UFO, and an alien body was recovered from the crash. We'll just give you the real quick, down and dirty overview of it, because nobody's listening now. We should get a screenshot right now where there's one fan, because then we can say our fan. The alien was recovered, the material from the ship was recovered, and the following day they said, well, no, it wasn't a spacecraft, it was a weather balloon. And then since then, it has just spiraled out of control as far as conspiracies, as far as what's really going on at Roswell, and the like. But let's talk about what's been going on with you. You've been missing in action for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We were having a good string of episodes, one after the next.
I know.
And then the week we were supposed to record, you said, hey, I'm not going to be able to record this week because I got to pack up the house or I got to do some stuff around the house. And then the next week you were just like, well, it's 4th of July, so maybe I'll come over and record.
Yeah.
And then, any days that we tried to reschedule, it was some other nonsense excuse.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to?
Selling my house. So.
Don't tell me. Tell them. Tell the people that you let down.
I'm sorry I let you down. I'm selling my house.
you took a knee on our fan.
I did. I did. Trying to sell my house, and finally it's happening. So here I sit.
Well,
I think you probably should try to go at it yourself, and you'd probably see our 1 or 2 fans go to like 25.
No. People would have seen. What they do is they come on, and if they don't see 2 people, believe me, I've tried to do like strip teases down here.
They assume we're just about to start jerking
I'll come
off.
over here into the open area and I'll start taking my shirt off.
Yeah.
And they'll say, oh, he's going to start, he's going to start stripping. So they'll turn it off instantly. So you think that we have a rapid turnaround of sign-on, sign-offs now.
Yeah.
Without you, it's a whole lot worse. What else has been going on? Anything interesting?
No. What about you?
No. Nothing at all. I've been sitting here in this exact spot waiting for you to come back.
Since 2 weeks
since 2 weeks ago, and
Yeah.
I've been waiting for you to come back so that we can record another show. And actually, I am. I believe I said this on. I do have some interesting stuff going on that is pertinent to this show. I told a couple weeks ago. I said that I was studying to become an exorcist, right? And it's been a long and arduous, I believe is the word I'm looking for, very difficult. A lot of reading, a lot of studying, a lot of I'll tell you, activity has picked up.
You're pissing them off.
So there's the old saying, and I don't remember the exact verse or whatever, and I won't turn this into a Bible lesson, but if you are possessed or oppressed, and I believe we've talked about this before, and you are cleansed of whatever, or your house has got a spirit in it, and you scare off the ghost or the spirit or the demon or whatever, it will roam for however long, and if it comes back and sees that you're available again to target, or your house is available or whatever, it will come back with 7 nastier demons. So I'm at that point where I'm possessed by, I call it the 1+7. So I'm back to that point. I remember I was talking about the pineal gland. That's a whole nother story. Where during my pineal gland stroking, I I had a very interesting experience, and that'll be a whole nother episode. You had me at pineal gland.
Wait a second.
Satisfaction.
While you were satisfying your pineal gland, you had a paranormal experience.
I did.
That's
I did.
awesome.
And we'll talk about that another day, because it's a whole other story. I am actively working on, so I don't want to get into it now because it's a whole other thing. And the pineal gland, I'm not where I need to be with the pineal gland. It's not big enough. So I'm not where I need to be. And I want to get there before I actually, start talking about it. This is actually a friend of the show.
Oh, is that,
She does a blog.
what's it called?
Bigfoot Mountain. She does have a blog. Let's give her a plug real quick. She actually wrote a phenomenal review about our show. Her Twitter is at SASY Squatch Girl. SASY SQUATCHGIRL. She's a big fan of the show, and she's been a huge asset to getting our name out there. She writes for and runs a blog called Bigfoot Mountain, so I just want to send a big shout out to her for this episode. Thank you for the review, and obviously we appreciate everything you do for the show.
Yeah. I've talked to you.
See, now you made me sit here and waste valuable audience time. Everyone. You know how many people quit the show? All of them. Everybody has left because you wouldn't tell us the name of your blog. But no, she is a friend of the show. I told her that we would give her a plug on the show here today, so she's not as dry as she's not dry at all, really. But see, this is the kind of stuff we can turn that into a whole nother segment. As some of the other Bigfoot stuff you'll read, not like Matt Squatch or anything. But
well, he did a show. Matt Squatch. Did you watch the show he did on his channel the other day about Bigfoot eating each other? Not dry. And I'm thinking to myself, the fuck ain't we talked about this in our show yet? Why is he talking about that shit on his show? That shit needs to be talked about on our show.
Because he comes here to talk about if it is below the waist.
That was close, man.
If it's below the waist, he can talk about it here. If it's above the waist, he was.
So we start talking about does Bigfoot eat dick? Then
he can talk about it here.
Gotcha.
But if Bigfoot eats other Bigfoot,
Intestines.
dick included, then he can talk about it on his show.
There's a lot of people not dry.
See, I knew as soon as I said she's not dry, I'm like, that's going to go a totally different route. Not one that we're unfamiliar with on this show, but I knew it was going to be taken out of context. But I'll roll with it, just because that's the sort of thing that I like to talk about. Anyways,
back on topic.
And that's what happens when I talk to women. They become,
not dry.
No, they become dry.
I'm trying to give you credit.
Well, I appreciate that, but that's not how it goes down. We're all about truth on You Had Me at Bigfoot. So, anyways, with this whole experience with the pineal gland, and with all the studying about how to become an exorcist.
Did you get helped?
By who?
I don't know, man.
No.
You haven't told me this story.
No, I know, and that's why I wanted to break it to you over on the air in front of our ones of fans, and so I've been having like all these issues, like everything is flaring up as far as
like your herpes and stuff.
The herpes, among other things. Dang, you
Gotcha.
me. Jam has got me with a good one the other day. But yeah, all that stuff is flaring up. I'm getting a lot of noises. I'm getting a lot of the show will grow. Don't worry. That's how about that? Mike made it. So with all that going on, I feel that's worth a whole nother revisit to the You Had Me at Exorcism we'll have to do in the future. And I mean, by then I'll be a lot more intelligent on the topic. That I'll be able to speak more intelligently rather than reading a WikiHow page like we did originally. So with that being said, I went on last night on Bing, as I often do. I don't go on Google anymore. But I went there and I looked up exorcism schools or exorcism training or whatever, because I know you can go to the Vatican, but you have to be sanctioned. You have to be you have to go through the whole process of being seen by a bishop and all that stuff, and it's very competitive and all that. So I know you can go to the Vatican for the training, but I'm not about to take a vow of celibacy. I'm like, what do they call them? Involuntary celibacy. The incel guys. Like I'm one of them. Yeah. But
I mean, I might as well.
That's what happens when you're married. But they also offer online exorcism schools. Did you know this?
It sounds legit.
It is absolutely not legit. Like if you go, I'm telling you, if you go look at, you'll see a consistent pattern among, and I saw 3 or 4 of them right at the top of the search results. The top 3 or 4, they're $500 a piece, and you have to subscribe to all these books, like these textbooks. It's like college, but worse as far as like...
It's like Scientology.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You have tuition, and then you have book costs, and you have all this other stuff. So I asked the guy who runs the main one, I said, do you guys accept the GI Bill? He said, no, we don't accept the GI Bill. However, we do offer a 10% discount for military.
In it.
So, well, I would have only had to pay $450 for the exorcism school.
Do you need the loan?
Do I need a loan for $500? No, I don't have the time for it. I'm actually I just started up school again. So, for real stuff, for like actual career sort of stuff, but. He was very aggressive in his pitch, and I'm a former sales guy myself, so I could smell the desperation on him, oozing through the email. He said, well, I'll tell you what. He's like, we can give you the 10% discount for military, and so whenever you're ready to make this happen, just go ahead and give us a call. We'll go ahead and process your enrollment and process the cost or whatever, process your card or whatever. So he was very like, when you say it's a scam and you say it sounds legit sarcastically, you're absolutely right. Like, if you talk to some of these guys, I guarantee a lot of them are just as phony as they come. Did you have anything you wanted to say about phony people while we're on the microphone?
I'll give it one more week.
Okay. That's what I told her.
Word.
I was gonna say it's probably Angela. She's probably like, I knew you were gonna say some shit. But no, as many of you know, we recently had a psychic on the show, and we were very excited. We're still holding out hope that if you remember watching, or if you've listened to it since on iTunes or Google Play or YouTube or Mixcloud or the bajillion other things that we're on, if you remember, Angela said that she was going to
look at our photos.
Look at the photos. Look at a photo of Dustin, and then also look at a photo of the basement here, where we operate out of, that we say is haunted, and where we had multiple experiences on the Ouija episode with the spirit box or the ovulus or whatever. And she was going to tell us if it was in fact haunted, and she was going to do a reading of Dustin, and she hadn't yet. And Dustin was he was being very aggressive in direct messages back and forth when we were talking, but now that I've got him on the spot, he's like, well, I don't know.
Only because she just messaged me and said she lost the picture, and I sent it back to her. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully by the time this episode hits, she's given me an answer and we can apologize. But let's be honest here. She's kind of blowed smoke up my ass a little bit since then.
For 2 weeks
over
now?
2 weeks now. You know what I'm saying? Angela?
Hopefully she's watching. She doesn't actually watch or listen to our show, so I think you're safe.
Yeah. She was like, fuck them guys.
Like most people, she does not watch or listen to our show. Well, we're, I guess James isn't coming today, so I guess we're not going to have any...
We talk about all kinds of paranormal and cryptozoology, but it's different, man. You have to stick around and watch it. We're different around here. We're not your everyday serious podcast.
We're not your typical everyday podcast.
Check us out.
We're worse.
We're worse, yeah. We have an explicit adult content warning on iTunes, so...
Yeah, we have a parental advisory on
Parental advisory, yeah, there you go.
On our iTunes. You know, when I was growing up and I always saw the parental advisory on a CD, I always thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Limp Bizkit, they're so friggin' cool.
Now you see it and you're like, what a fucking lame.
Yeah. Now I know it. Now I realize how little it takes to get a parental advisory sticker. So, Roswell, New Mexico.
Roswell.
Let's talk about Roswell, New Mexico.
Not where Area 51 is at.
Not where Area 51 is at. This is going to be... the aim of the show was obviously originally to talk to people who didn't know anything about the paranormal, but they had an interest in it. There are some topics that are glazed over. Glazed over? Glossed over? Just kind of like blown over, like you know of them, but you don't know. Now I'm thinking about donuts. And
I'll say about cum.
What? Of course you were. Of course you were. So Roswell, New Mexico, I think is one of those topics where it just kind of got... You hear about it, and you don't really hear about it. Like, you don't really dive into it, because you're like, oh, Roswell's where the alien crashed. The end. So what we're going to kind of try to do here today is give a very, a very general paint a picture for you without going too deep into it. I don't want to get too crazy about it. And but I do want to make sure that you get some information, because there's a lot of misconceptions about Roswell. Like, for instance, when Dustin walked in today, he said, isn't that where Area 51 is at?
Yeah, exact conversation.
And that...
hey, Dustin, what do you know about Roswell? That's where Area 51's there or something. So, okay, maybe you should research this a little bit.
And that's the thing about you had had me at Bigfoot is we don't research stuff before we come on the show.
Yeah,
so
we are just like CNN of the paranormal world.
Except for somehow faker. But, so Roswell, New Mexico is very different from Area 51. Area 51 is actually located in
Nevada, yeah. We just set 15 hours away.
Yeah, it's like 15 hours from one location to the other. So, two very different locations. Roswell, New Mexico, if you have been living under a rock for the last... You want to cover your mouth while we're live on the... Now I'm going to yawn, and I'm going to have to... But...
I'm used to just sitting behind this mic.
Yeah,
I can't run my nipples no more.
Well, you can still do that.
Oh.
I mean, we have a parental advisory on iTunes.
That's right.
Might as well get one on Periscope, too.
Let's kick us off Periscope. Well,
Well,
what does it take to get kicked off Periscope?
Oh, well, we'll find out, I'm sure. Roswell, New Mexico is the site of the 1947, it was actually July 8th, 1947, crash landing of a... Oh, okay, so we already have people answer. They're like, come on, guys, just get it together. Spit it out. So that is the site of the alien crash landing. Now, the interesting thing about the Roswell, New Mexico situation is, like most things, back then, obviously, too, especially, I mean, the news media, all that was still, it was like new, so they were excited to use it and get the information out there as quick as possible. We were at a point in modern history where we had the means to get information to people and we wanted to use it. And they did. So an alien crash lands in Roswell, New Mexico. They pump it out real quick. They say, hey, we had a crash landing.
It's an alien.
Such and such. People were talking about aliens. People were talking about UFOs. People were talking about all sorts of crazy stuff. It was a conspiracy theorist's wet dream. And the following day, so somewhere between that point and the following day, they decided, hey, we probably shouldn't tell people that this was an alien. So they come up with this whole other press release, the military does, and, obviously hand in hand with the United States government, and they say, we need to tell them that it was something else. So their answer instead is, well, it was a weather balloon, okay? Now, weather balloons are reasonably heavy compared to, like, if we were to try to, like, you're not picking up like a regular balloon. I mean, they're pretty heavy, right? Mm-hmm. They're a vehicle of some sort, but they're not nearly heavy enough to, even if it crash landed, if you look at the site of where the incident happened, there's a crater there. And if you can imagine a weather balloon creating that, we're going to get visited by the Men in Black tonight. Yeah. They might buy your house if you talk them into it. Let's see how good of a salesman you are. Sell your house to the Men in Black. If you believe that a weather balloon crashed and created that crater, I got some waterfront property in Nevada to sell you.
George Strait throwback.
So, if I'm talking about trying to figure out how do I get to go see that crater, you're talking about going to see it. Tom, you're going to see that crater. You're talking about going to see that crater.
You're going to go see that crater?
I am.
How do you do this?
Well, you can do it now.
How?
You just can. Because guess what? Roswell, New Mexico, the exact site of the UFO crash landing
is open.
Is now open to the public.
Think you can take a metal detector there?
I don't know.
I bet you can.
Why don't you go test it out? I would totally go to Roswell, New Mexico, and I would.
The crater's still there.
Yeah, they never cleaned it up.
From a weather balloon, there's a crater.
Yeah. Imagine how suspicious it would be for the government to come out and try to tidy up a crater, when they do something suspicious, and we were just talking about this before the show. We won't talk about the topic because it's very, like, sensitive. People get sensitive about it. But, if you were to have a crash landing like that, imagine being the government, and then imagine also being a conspiracy theorist, like two sides of the equation here. Imagine there is a crater from a crashed weather balloon, right? If you're the government, or a conspiracy theorist, there's a UFO. And this crater is sitting there. You are the government. Are you going to clean up that crater?
Yes.
Why?
Because
why?
because you don't want people to know. No, I get what you're saying, but you know, it's the government, man.
So if they go out there and they're saying, "Hey, it's a weather balloon," we're sticking to it.
Back then you could get away with that shit.
But if it's still there, you know, they've had what, 50 some odd years? I'm really bad at math. 60 some odd years, 70 years now. Oh yeah, duh. It's the 70th anniversary. Speaking of, it is the 70th anniversary of the Roswell incident. So, if you go out there and you clean that up as the government, is that not an admission of guilt?
But they could have said, well, we're cleaning it up because it's a military vehicle. We have to clean it up. Or they don't clean it up. They cleaned it up as they got the bodies.
Well, yeah, they got the body. And
they cleaned up the most important areas, right?
We have somebody comment, I've been to Roswell. The latest theory was so stupid, it hurt. So that being said, what do you have on Roswell that you would like to add to the discussion?
You know, I know
you researched long and hard.
I did. I know that an alien gave flowers to Tommy Lee Jones of Men in Black.
Was that the Roswell incident?
That's what they claim to do, the Roswell incident, isn't it? In Men in Black?
Yeah, probably. But it was the Syrians, right? Wasn't it?
Well, it's always the Syrians.
But so what do you really have about the? I know you were looking at some
for my research of it is that it was a plane that crashed, and it was a plane that was used to detect nuclear waste from the Soviet Union or something along those lines. And it crashed. There was that farmer, the farmer that claimed that this was the what's his name? His last name's Brazil.
I'm sure.
William Brazil. He was the he was the guy that owned the land, the farm that this thing crashed on. He took the pieces and said, "Look, it's I saw a flying disc. It was a flying saucer. This is what I found." He took that to the news. They ran with it. They published it. The military came out and said it was a weather balloon, and then they come out and said it was a debris from a highly classified project used by the U.S. Army Air Force to detect atomic bomb tests in the Soviet Union. That's the kind of material that was recovered on the ranch after being reported by the ranch worker William Brazil. But then, you know, fast forward, you know, you have the nurses that worked at the Roswell Army or the Roswell military base that said she walked in on the doctors and they were performing these tests on these aliens. You have the person in 1995 that released the video of the reported autopsy of an alien, right? Mm-hmm. So who knows, man? You know, I tell you who does know is Fox Mulder.
What about Gillian Anderson? Is that her real name or is that her on the...
No, that's
Scully.
Scully. Scully's her name.
Scully knows. So...
Really, she doesn't know, though. It always seems that Fox Mulder gets to see everything, and she's the last one to the party.
Well, she was the skeptic anyways.
Yeah, always.
And that's how it always is. The skeptic's always the one.
I mean, she only did this shit for over 10 years and was always a skeptic.
But that's you have to admire that level of commitment, though, to skepticism. But... So some interesting stuff about the actual incident. And I'm going to glaze over the topic again. I still don't even think that's the right word. I'm still going to skim. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Skip.
I'm still going to skim over the topic rather than going too deep into detail. But when the gloss, we'll go with that.
There you go.
At least we know somebody's listening. Thank you. But. So one of the big things that happened was when they said it was a dummy drop, because the people who saw it happen, they saw the dummies being dragged out of, well, what they thought, they said, well, they were aliens being dragged out. And then the government said, no, it was a dummy drop, which didn't actually start happening. They didn't start doing that until like 10 years later. But... and these are all like things that came out. You got to remember, for us, it's easy to say, well, this is what happened, and then some other skeptic is going to say, well, it was a dummy drop. Well, yeah, looking back, it's easy to say, well, it was a dummy drop, but in reality, that period of time seems so short because we were not.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We didn't exist during that time. But for people who were alive back then or were young,
they know how crazy that would.
Shortly following the events, obviously, it was more. It was longer, like it took longer, and they were able to process it in real time. Now, so 10 years after the event is when they started doing the dummy drop, but that's the excuse that they gave multiple years later and more recently, saying, well, no, it was a dummy drop. Well, that didn't start until 10 years later, but whatever, I digress. The people who saw it, the witnesses, saw them dragging dummies away from, or what they thought was aliens, away from the scene. Now, elsewhere at the medical institute or where they were doing the autopsies, this is actually a funeral home, I think, they were doing the autopsies on these bodies. Now, there was a doctor at the time who saw a nurse who ran out of the room, covering her face and puking and stuff, and she said that the smell was so bad that she couldn't deal with it, and she had walked in, and I guess he had talked to her, and she said that they were doing the autopsy on all these, dead bodies, or as they often do, I would hope, and the smell was just so bad that she couldn't deal with it anymore. Now, skeptics since then have said no, and I believe it was the Air Force that even said no, he's thinking of another event, or he's thinking of this other nurse that something happened, and his memory is foggy because what he's actually thinking of is there was a crash landing of an actual Air Force mission or training mission where there were several burnt, charred bodies of service members who were having the autopsy done. And if you've ever smelt a burning body, it is one of the most awful things that you will ever smell, and that smell will stick with you forever. So being there in the presence of a dead, burnt body is something that would certainly send somebody running out of a room if they're not used to it. If you're a nurse and the worst thing you have to deal with is a little gore and maybe
could make you hungry.
Piss everywhere. It does, and that's the interesting thing about a burning body. This is a fun fact for you at home. I can appreciate a cannibal not because I appreciate cannibalism, but because a burning body from a distance smells delicious. But then as you get closer to it, it will smell so awful. That is the smell that will haunt your dreams. And I'll tell you how I know. We were driving at one point, and we were outside of Baghdad, and we were heading up to this other place to pick up some piece of equipment from another base, and I smelled something, and there you have people cooking chicken on the side of the road. You remember, you have people cooking chicken on the side of the road, and you smell it, and you're like, oh, it smells like somebody's cooking chicken. And their chicken is actually very good over there. They've mastered the art of cooking chicken.
I mean,
after
if you can cook chicken on the side of a road with the shit that they're
you've got it figured out.
You've got it down.
And so I thought somebody was cooking, and I even thought to myself, I'm like, man, I am hungry. And I can remember at the time how hungry I was. It's so funny how some of those memories really stick with you. And as we kept going, and I was a gunner on the top of the truck, so there was no escaping this smell. And it started to get worse. And I thought, oh, we're past the chicken. we're moving on to something else. Like everything else in that country, it smelled awful. And it kept getting worse and worse as we gradually kept moving forward. And then eventually I saw what looked like a blown out tire on the side of the road. And what I thought was a blown out tire. How many people are still listening? Okay, we have people still listening to this story of all stories. We couldn't have people listening to like the fun-loving G-rated stuff earlier. Now we have people listening to me talk about a burning body on the side of the road. What I thought was, spoiler alert, what I thought was a blown out tire was actually a burnt, charred, completely burnt. I'm talking like not just like a little bit. I'm talking about like head to toe, just all black, charred, destroyed body. And the only thing that wasn't black was the white teeth that were left. Because if you've ever seen a burnt body, the lips account for precious little of your skin, of your exposed skin that has nothing underneath it. So when a body burns, it pinches the lips and pulls the what would be considered fuel. Yeah. It off gases the face, and it shrinks your lips up, and it'll show your teeth like a Cheshire cat. So I saw that on the side of the road, and the smell was so intense. I can still smell it to this day. It's like the one smell that has stuck with me my whole life, and this is like 12 years ago, 13 years ago.
Them burning camels is what fucked me up.
Yeah, well, it's the hair on the camels that'll do it, because they're already filthy animals. Yeah. So they, she had logged out. She's like, I hope they're done talking about that by now. But anyways, so like I said, that nurse running out of the room after smelling these 3 burnt, crispy critters, as people in the medical examiner's field will call them, doesn't surprise me at all. Whether or not they were aliens or not, that's where I start to kind of draw some similarities between the two stories. Because one story to another, if you're just looking at them individually as separate stories, it wouldn't be hard to believe, oh, okay, they were training dummies that crash landed. Or, oh, it was 3 burnt bodies from a training exercise from the Air Force that she smelled.
Yeah.
Or saw, or whatever. Those two stories kept exclusive from one another. I could believe that. Now, when you put them together and you say there was a crash landing of some unidentified object or some unidentified flying object, bodies were pulled from the wreckage, and then shortly thereafter, during an autopsy, a woman saw 3 charred bodies that were small, relative, and she described them as being alien-like, as far as we understand them to be today.
But here's the thing: you've seen a body and you've seen traumatic damage to bodies. Mm-hmm. People, the human body can get very goofy in traumatic circumstances. You know, like, mm-hmm. And if you're not somebody who's used to seeing something like that, you could maybe see a body of someone's body who's extremely traumatized and look at it initially and think, God, that does not look normal.
Yeah. Okay, I get that.
You know.
But again, we're talking about...
But I think it was
I like how you have to play the devil's advocate of being a skeptic, but in reality you're like, but I totally
believe that they were aliens.
So...
I'm trying hard to be like, no, there was aliens. There was aliens.
Are you interested in advertising on You Had Me at Bigfoot? Oh, hell no! Reach out to us at contact@youhadmeatbigfoot.com. Like I said, separately, I can see that. I can agree with you 110%, because if you've ever seen traumatic damage to a body and you're not ready for it, it will mess you up. Like, even just seeing a broken arm. Like, if you were to just walk into a room and see somebody with a broken arm, if you know that it's there, it's not gonna, you're ready for it. You're mentally prepared for it. If you walk into it and you see somebody with a broken arm, it'll throw you off for a second. You know, that's why, like, a lot of firefighters, EMTs, doctors, nurses, normally are mentally prepared for something. Police officers as well.
I've seen a lot of fucked up shit in my life, okay? The one thing I can never forget, my wife had to have a C-section. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when you're the dad, they make you wait until they get everything prepped and everything. For some reason, they went on and started cutting her open before I got there. So as I walked in the doors, they were filleting my wife open like a damn butter. Right? And I about passed out. And I've seen a lot of fucked up shit, man. Like, I've been covered in blood and everything else. And this like, not being prepared to see my wife cut open like that about fucked me up out of my life.
And what's funny is they did the same exact thing to me, because you know, my wife had a C-section as well, and they had told me, hey, we're gonna come get you before it starts, right? Or, you know, once everything's ready, we're gonna come get you. And you think you're going to show up, they're going to walk you around the curtain, you're not going to see anything, sure. Then they're going to make the incision.
Sure. Not true.
No, not at all. They brought me in and I had to wash my hands and get all ready and get everything on and all that and get the scrubbed up, I believe is what it's called. I'm not in the medical field, so. And I'm looking in this window to my right, because here's the sinks in front of me, and I look in the window into the operating room, and I see somebody lying on the table with the sheet covering the upper body, and I see the exposed belly, and I see them opening. I kept thinking, I'm like, why do they have me?
Yeah.
Looking like, isn't this like some kind of patient privacy sort of violation? Yeah. Like, so I feel bad for this patient who I'm witnessing their surgery, and it was a military hospital, as it were. So, it would not surprise me. But then they walk me in, they're like, hey, we're going to walk you in. And I thought there was, my wife was going to be on the other side of this other curtain. I'm like, oh, now they're going to walk me through the operating room where somebody else is. And then finally, and they walk me right by where the surgery is going on. And imagine if I were somebody who was afraid of gore and that sort of stuff. Like, that probably would have been a traumatic experience. But no, I walk right past my wife getting sliced open, like you said, getting filleted.
Sucks to be you.
And I said, as soon as I get to the other side of the curtain, I'm like, oh, it's you, And I said, you know what I just saw on the other side of the curtain? You're not going to believe what I just saw. Like, I saw all the way up into your throat, basically. Not like that's how the human anatomy works, but... So, what else do we know about? We actually have somebody contributing this whole time. The Grand Hunter of the Angelic Order, a reptoid hunter. He's actually, we really want to get him on the show. We want him to be our reptilian guy, but he has yet to agree to be on the show. Understandably so, because he understands what this show is about and is like, I would also avoid it. But he's been contributing a lot to this whole, throughout this whole episode, saying that, and just now he said that it dealt with the crash dummies and using a new parachute, and that was the silver thing people found. So they apparently have the museum there in Roswell that you can go and visit. So, what else do you have on Roswell while we're on the topic?
Well, it's just pretty. That's Roswell, man.
That's how you're gonna end it. That's how you're gonna end the episode.
That's Roswell. The end.
What do you give Roswell?
I mean, I think first, look, for people to I mean, I think first, look, I mean, I think take a conspiracy like this and run with it that much. There has to be some truth to it.
Was this not like the original conspiracy, though?
Oh, sure. I mean, this has got to be like what, yeah. I mean, if you think back, this has really got to be like the first. I'm sorry, I'm like distracted by like the
somebody like, saying toodles, bitches.
Well, because the name of the person, he's obviously an ignorant. Like, it's clearly somebody who likes to be in the with a dildo.
Wow.
By like a 500-pound man.
Let's hear what you really think.
And then that's the argument that I can't read and talk at the same time.
You said you can't read. I wish I would have known that this was a troll. I would have been paying more attention this whole time. Yeah. But I've been over here talking about serious stuff.
Well, I'm seeing it and I'm thinking, like, I don't care what the guy's saying. Because
has he said anything funny?
No. Well, he said I want to stick a glass tube up my butt and smash it. But that's true, so that's not really trolling.
So are we going to make out or not? Do you think it's V?
No. Have you seen the name of this dude?
Nuh-uh.
Read his name. I mean, he's, like I said, he's...
Oh, yeah, I can't read that on the show.
No. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's clearly an ignorant person. So.
But go ahead. Original conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it's the original conspiracy theory. I mean, so... But it got... you have enough people that say, well, yeah, we saw the flying saucer, or we saw them pulling out bodies. And then you have the military initially saying, yeah, it was aliens. Oh, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. So, yeah, here's what it is.
So, yeah, and that's the only thing that I would argue with you saying that, why would it drag on for so long, or why would it have stood the test of time? Arguably, it's the oldest conspiracy theory, at least in modern times, and since the spread of, like the original, when they said something about the internet, you could spread anything on the internet, you can't believe anything that you read on the internet, because of that one saying. Somebody had spread a lie about when you sleep, every year you swallow, an average of 8 spiders or whatever. Like, that was just some made up thing that.
Did you see that video on Twitter today?
Or whatever.
The girl that had the spider in her mouth, and she just opens her mouth and it comes crawling out. Like,
I've seen that before. I've seen that video before.
Fuck that, man.
But, yeah, so, I mean, because that's the oldest, longest standing lie on the internet, and it's worked. I mean, if you ask anybody, how many spiders do you eat on average in a year, they'll tell you 8, just because that's what, they've heard over and over and over again.
Which, because it's probably not true. It's probably more like 30.
It's not. It's probably way more than that. You can't believe anything you hear on the internet, nor can you believe anything you hear on You Had Me a Bigfoot. But Roswell being the oldest modern conspiracy theory, I believe that would be enough to help it to stand the test of time. And but at the same time, I do believe, like you said, I think there is enough going on, the inner workings of the conspiracy, that I believe it to be true. I give it a 5 Bigfoots. I think a lot of people understand it to have been something weird, but a lot of people just, they don't want to commit to, because it's probably our best, like Matt Squatch always says, to the Patty Bigfoot video as being like the holy grail of Bigfoot evidence. That's kind of what the Roswell situation was for aliens. Well, it's our holy grail of
and also coincidentally enough, Roswell happens. And what happens with our technology from that point on, from 1947 on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, up until then, I mean, we had what? We had the ability to have a steam engine train, and that was like
some lights.
The peak,
you know what I'm saying? But
of technology.
Technology really took off from that point on, right? All of a sudden, we have major ability to create these fantastic fighter jets and space shuttles. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because then, I mean, within years,
the
a couple decades, we were on the moon.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. So.
But we were in space within a few years after that. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's life out there. I think that this world is visited by aliens on a constant basis. I think that Wonder Woman is real. And,
oh yeah, Mike in Manitoba still can't comment, but he is here, so we knew that.
So what I think then maybe what'll happen is, Mike, maybe next episode we do.
I'll see if I can get on there and manipulate like the preferences and stuff. I don't know enough about Periscope we just do it as like an extra thing, because obviously the idea is we record for the podcast. The Periscope is just an extra thing for
there's a lot of stuff
true believer status.
There's a lot of stuff that goes on the podcast that is not on the Periscope. There's a lot of stuff from this Periscope that doesn't go on the podcast.
Yeah,
this gives you behind the scenes. Yeah.
So, for the people who can tolerate watching us on... Did you see the thing on Twitter that I posted about how we were going to do the Patreon and then the non-Patreon?
Which, that being said, it does mean a lot. When you sit here and you have the same people stay tuned in with you for an hour. We've been going for an hour now. And we have a few people that's been with us since we started recording. That's pretty cool, man. To know that someone's taken an hour of their day to sit and listen to us two idiots talk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's really cool. And I personally appreciate it. Like, it makes you feel good to know that you are entertaining some people.
Me too. Well, while we're on that subject, if you could, if you feel that we've earned it, as we're going to do like Matt Squatch callback, like Matt Squatch references this whole episode. If you feel that we've earned it, follow us on Twitter at You Had Me Podcast. You can find us on YouTube as well, and we're transitioning into that with the YouTube. We got the GoPro, we got all that set up, we got the recorder, we got cameras, we got everything set up. We're going to actually start doing more video-related content, such as, I know you have a ghost hunter friend who we're going to start doing some kind of, we're going to tag along for some paranormal investigations. You know, I don't personally do it anymore, but I'll tag along. Dustin, you've never done it before, have you? I'm haunted, so any time that I think we go along on a paranormal investigation, we're going to get activity. They're going to be talking about, well, earlier Tom was watching Catfish on MTV or whatever. You're going to have a bunch of EVPs of embarrassing stuff that I did that I don't want people to know about. You should see the porn that Tom watches. But we're going to start doing that a lot more. We're going to start doing hunting cryptids. We're going to start doing as much as we can to supplement the podcast. Obviously, again, the podcast was the primary focus originally. However, we're branching out. We're trying to keep it interesting for you guys, because I know there's only so much that you can listen to us drone on about.
We thought about doing like a YouTube channel where we do the green screen and do like
kind of like what we're doing now, but with a more professional setup instead of having all my crap in the background. But yeah, obviously something like that would be ideal. It'd be probably a little bit more difficult to edit, and we have to deliver kind of like we do now on with the Periscope listeners or whatever. But we'll have to actually perform and do a good job for them, for the audience. But yeah, YouTube. We're on YouTube. If you subscribe on there, the more subscribers that we have on YouTube, the more we're able to do with YouTube, such as live streaming. So with paranormal investigations and hunting cryptids and stuff like that, obviously with Periscope, we're going to use Periscope to live stream it. We're going to have the GoPro as just an extra camera. We're going to have, if we can have YouTube doing live streams, we will do live streams on YouTube as well of the paranormal investigations and everything like that. So you can see me and Dustin. You can see Dustin, I don't want to go down in that basement alone, and we'll do funny stuff like forcing each other to go down into the basements alone and do terrifying things, just for the sake of a laugh. And but we're also on, I mean, if you go to our website, youhadmeatbigfoot.com, you can find all the episodes there. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes.
I just got chills thinking about going in the basement.
So you're all stressed out already, and we haven't even gone on your first ghost hunt. Ooh. But the more, obviously the more subscribers we have on more platforms, the more we can do with, that includes the audience, and the more fun we'll be able to have, and the more fun you'll be able to have at our expense, watching us do stupid things live, and watching our actual hilarious reactions when Dustin has to go into this basement over here, the haunted basement, all by himself.
I did that one time.
Well, you were drunk at the time, so
I was drunk.
That's the only reason you went in there. But yeah, so that's our call to the fan, our call to action to the fan. If you go out, share. We operate on word of mouth. We've spent our entire advertising budget for the year was $3, and we've spent it already. So we operate entirely on word of mouth. If you could share with your friends anything, if you think we're interesting, if you think we've earned it, if you think we've earned a follow, please, we're here for you. We don't do this we probably would do this by ourselves, but we wouldn't record it, and it wouldn't be funny, and I wouldn't pour 12 to 15 hours per episode trying to edit. I know it doesn't sound like I spend that much time editing.
Hold on, stop for a second, because you're sounding, man, this guy works really hard. I'm not going to let him tote himself, because that's what he's trying to do, but he does 12 to 15 hours. The work I put in on this show is none. I do this right here. I come, I talk, I leave. So Tom does a really good job.
I sit up at night editing the episode, and all the funny noises and the edits and all that stuff. And
it doesn't matter that he's on. It doesn't matter that he's on cocaine and can't sleep anyways. Yeah.
Fortunately, I'm haunted by the 1+7, so they keep me up at night anyhow. So. But yeah, that's the more followers, the more subscribers, the more whatever, the more listeners, the more downloads on iTunes and Google Play that we have, the more we can do with you guys. The more, once we start getting, if we were to move towards monetizing on YouTube and stuff like that, you know, obviously the more any kind of income that comes in would be used to make the show better for you guys.
And eat French fries, McDonald's French fries.
We both, and that too. That would go into travel and per diem and everything like that. But so, you know, like I said, I'm not going to beat that dead horse. We've been there, we've done that. So, you got anything else you got to say to the audience, the fan?
No, I said my piece. I appreciate everybody listening. It's a lot of fun. We're still not going like super far yet, but we started this thing last year, just two of us. Like you talk about, we literally just recorded the two of us and didn't know what would happen. We've come a long way to where we have a YouTube channel, and now we're on iTunes and all these other podcast, you know, apps. We're doing the Periscope. We are actually starting to have, although it may only be a few fans, we're actually starting to have fans that are actual fans of the show. And like I said, that's just really cool, man. Just to be like a Joe Blow nobody, and to know that you have people that come to you for entertainment. That's pretty cool. So
it used to be just my mom would listen to the show, and that was it.
Yeah.
And she hated it.
Yeah.
But
my brother would listen and be like, "You guys suck."
So thank you, everybody. With that, we'll leave you to it. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you again. Hopefully next week, if Dustin doesn't take a knee again. Next week on You Had Me at Bigfoot. Where in the universe would you like to go? Where would you go? It's okay. Take as much time as you want.
I don't even know.
Where? Because honestly, where in the universe are you aware of that you're like, oh, that sounds like a really nice place. I hear that's a good place to vacation.